Hey, it's Alex from BoardGameCo, and today I'm starting a new series, completely new series for the channel, where once a month I'm going to cover basically what I backed and or didn't back from the prior month. This series is less value-based where I cover everything, and more particular it's going to be specifically the things that I personally had an interest in, and then why I did or didn't back them, and then yes, that part will very much be value-based. And in general, I think I'll figure out the pattern as I go, but for this time, I'm going to go first through the ones that I did not back and why, and then through what I did back. But before I get into that, because we're covering September, I'm covering right now first updates for 7th Citadel and Dinosaur Island, because those just had, well, all-in drops, and so I felt that was worth covering while we're here. And so for 7th Citadel, it's a little bit of an easier one. They basically dropped an all-in pledge here somewhere, if I can find it here. They dropped an all-in pledge, maybe it's the previous one. Over here, new pledge gameplay all in, where basically you're saving somewhere in the range of, you're saving €8. So it's not bad. It's a gameplay all in pledge, gives you everything you want. You're saving €8. If you are anyways interested in this stuff, this is obviously, well, worth knowing about because you get a discount. So just covering that there is an all in pledge here for the campaign that ends in under 3 days. So if you're interested in 7 Citadel, go ahead and check that out. For Dinosaur World and Dinosaur Island Roar and Right, they really took that all in pledge to the next level. So what they have over here, they have an all-in pledge for, well, revealed, and again, this one has 4 days to go, 3 days by the time you're watching this, and we unlocked, first of all, we unlocked the Ice Age pack, so this is a third optional buy, Kickstarter exclusive, $15 to get this pack, but what they did is they have two different pledge levels. They have an all-in for everything Dinosaur World for $105 versus $115, so basically that drops each pack by another, if you're just valuing it that way, it drops each expansion down to $10 effectively, or a little more, it's like, whatever, you're saving $10 in 3, you're saving an additional $3.33 per expansion, which is already a better deal, so you're down to like $12 per expansion. Or if you're getting everything, you're basically saving $20 on a full all-in pledge, so that could be the same, $3.33 per expansion savings, plus an additional $10 savings on Dinosaur Island Roar and Right. Overall, I already thought most of these were fine. The thing I was most on the fence was Dinosaur Island Roar and Right, and this makes it, an easy back. If you were interested in this before, then for sure back these at either of these pledge levels, depending on which one you want. If you were on the fence, well, now's time to reconsider, because these totally change the entire, again, I thought it was good before, these just make it that much better. These are all-in pledges that make it significantly better if you are on the fence about these. And with that, let's go into the month of September, starting with Northgard. And again, this is just a recap. Some of these things you'll already know if you follow my stuff. Other things, well, this might be news to you. And many of these, there probably will be late pledges, because these are all recent things that just ended. So starting off the bat with Northgard. Northgard I covered, I did a review of it. Overall, Northgard was a game that I see the promise of it. My concern is that I think it might be catered to a slightly lighter audience in terms of the gameplay it's delivering. It does deliver deck building, which I really enjoy, but I ended up comparing it mostly to Monumental in my collection, and Monumental won out. It's an unfair comparison because I am comparing a finished game that has gone through playtesting, gone through years of whatever, and I'm comparing that against a game that is still in the early phases and is still being iterated upon. So I want to be very clear, it's an unfair comparison. That being said, in the genre that it fits, Monumental is one that I am more interested in. I do plan on keeping an eye on Northgard as well as it launches and as reviews come in. If there's enough hype and buzz and people love it, I will be checking it out again, because the core was solid enough that I enjoyed it. The current implementation had enough finicky stuff that I prefer Monumental, but overall I think this is a game you're not going wrong on. They dropped a lot of extra content in this game, and it was enjoyable. I enjoyed playing it, and so I plan on keeping an eye on it, like I said. And that's basically Northgard, and I did not back that one. Glenmore 2 Highland Games. This is one that, as soon as the campaign dropped, I kind of knew I was out, but I was very interested in Glenmore 2 Highland Games because I like Glenmore 2. It's one that I still question the longevity of my collection, because whenever I pull it out, I enjoy it, but it's one that always gets that stinky eye when I'm looking at games and trying to debate what's going to stay in my collection versus what I'm getting rid of. And so Glenmore 2 is despite this, so Glenmore 2 I enjoy, so I was very interested in Glenmore 2 Highlands in terms of what else it would introduce to the game, what extra stuff. Ultimately, this one, what stopped me from backing this one is the pledge level, the cost plus shipping just didn't make sense compared to what it would be available at retail. And so while interested in the game, I passed on the Kickstarter. I will 100% be picking this up down the road, or 100% assuming Glenmore 2 is still in my collection, that is. Then we have Endangered, Orphans, House of Rath. This is by Certifiable Studios. They've done Who Goes There. This one really pulled me in from a stance of the gameplay itself. The gameplay reminded me very much of Mr. Jack, Le Phantom de Opera, in terms of that little puzzly element of how can I manipulate a board state in such a way that you can't unpuzzle back to the state you want. And I really like that gameplay in Le Phantom de Opera and Mr. Jack. What held me off on this one is not whether it would hold its value, it just felt that it was a little pricey in terms of what you're getting compared to Le Phantom de Opera, which I really enjoy. Additionally, Le Phantom de Opera is a game that I find myself pulling out inconsistently, so I will go 4 months and not touch it at all, and then I'll pull it out, get 2 or 3 games in, and then not touch it for 4 months. And because of that, I don't own Mr. Jack either. I have found that over time, I eventually just condensed down to the version I enjoyed the most because of that inconsistent gameplay and how I like to experience it and enjoy it. Endangered, Orphans, House of Wrath is one that I do plan on keeping an eye on, because if it ends up being a game that's better than Le Phantom de Opera, maybe it will replace it in terms of being that game. Or maybe I'll like them both enough that I end up keeping both. But for right now, the price point compared to, it would end up costing roughly twice Le Phantom de Opera, and so I basically decided to hold off for now. I'm very interested in it. I plan on keeping an eye on it. Maybe at some point down the road it'll show up, but I didn't feel enough of a need to get my hands in it now, despite being tempted. This is actually a good video series because most of my videos you get to see all the choices I make that are giving into FOMO. In this video series where I talk about the games I also don't back, you get to see the rational side of me that holds off from things I want because of being rational and all that. And I guess, again, my whole channel is about being rational, but I still give in to the FOMO. I still get sucked up into the hype, the buzz, my own hype and buzz sometimes. So Hamburg and Amsterdam, the Stefan Feld City Collection, this was an easy pass for me. I'm super interested in it, but when I say it's an easy pass, I just don't think the price point makes sense. The price point, the games I mentioned already, I believe they'll hold their value because they're doing a very limited print run of these games. Assuming they stay consistent, assuming Queen Games stays consistent and does not release these to retail, then ultimately this Kickstarter will be your opportunity to get them, and or the next Kickstarter, but things won't get better there. But for me, Bruges was a game, Macau was a game that I don't feel the need to own another copy of. It was a good game, I enjoyed it, but unless they did something magically amazing to it, I don't think this is going to be bumped up to a game I need to own in my collection. And Bruges, I have a copy, and it's the original art, which I like far more than this one, and the changes to the game that they made just didn't feel necessary to me. I didn't have a problem with them necessarily, but they didn't feel necessary. So combine the art I prefer with the high price point of this, the bigger box size. The only real reason I was tempted to back this game is because of the untold promise of the future, of what else happens with the Stefan Feld City Collection. What other games will I want down the road? What will I miss out on in a non-matching box set? But FOMO alone, that possibility, that concern, that FOMO is not enough to hook me in, so I will simply keep an eye on the next Kickstarter. I'll keep an eye on the reviews for Hamburg when they come in. Ultimately, I'll just keep an eye on it, but I'm passing for now, so I did not back the Stefan Feld City Collection, despite being interested in them, other things being equal. Next up from there, we have Streets. Streets is another game that I really was interested in. This is by Sinister Fish Games. The gameplay looked simple yet engaging, and the price point wasn't bad either. In the end of the day, the reason I passed on this one, the reason I decided to not go ahead and back the Sinister Fish, back Streets, is because of the fact that the gameplay looked lighter. And historically speaking, lighter games have had a harder time sticking in my collection. I would say that when I try a heavier game, something with a little more meat to it, usually I get a better feel for whether it's something I will like or not, and usually, not always, I will make a decent call, but this was something I liked. And I don't even always keep them, to be clear. Sometimes they just lose in comparison to other games, but I usually have a better, I guess, hitting average on predicting whether those are games for me. Lighter games, on the other hand, I find they always look so accessible. They always look so appealing. And they always look like, ooh, look how simple and elegant that gameplay is. And then in practice, I play them, and I have a much lower hitting average on those. A much lower average of trying to pick the winners, because sometimes a game that looks light and accessible otherwise translates into not enough interesting decisions to keep me invested past game 2. Because I usually walk away from game 1 thinking, that was fun, I really enjoyed that. And then 3 months go by and I'm like, you know what, I never really had a desire to play it again. Or worse, I play it again and I'm like, there's no other game here. And not to say Streets is like that, it's just the combination of the okay price and the lower hitting average on lighter games, I decided to pass on Streets despite being pretty interested in it. And like most of these, I will keep an eye on it and we'll see how that plays out. From there we have, wait, no, one more. Monsters, two more actually. There's two more I didn't back. A very low amount of games I actually backed here. Monsters on Board is another one that I was very interested from Final Frontier Games. This is one that I was really interested in. It has art by the Mako. It has gorgeous miniatures. The gameplay is dice drafting. Everything about this game really pulled me in to the game. Ultimately, what had me holding off on this one is Final Frontier's games. Their inconsistent batting average, their batting average, not mine, in terms of producing quality games, as opposed to games that are incredibly well produced, look amazing, and have enough everything to be good, but not great. They haven't really had any major hits past Coloma, and while their games tend to be okay generally isn't enough for me to jump in at $90 on. So again, I think it will hold its value just fine initially. If you do what I said in the video last time, go ahead and back it, try it in that first month, get it out the door if it's not for you. But for me, I am interested in it. I'll keep an eye on it, but I'm probably going to do the reverse in the sense that I will probably wait to see if it's a complete, bust. And if it is, then I'm not interested. And if it isn't a complete bust, then I will pick it up and pay the premium. And that's fine. Sometimes I'm willing to pay that premium because other times I just forget. And what looks interesting today is not enough to hold my value hold my attention a year and a half from now. So yeah, Monsters on Board looks interesting. Keeping an eye on it like most of these, but just passed for right now due to Final Frontier's games, their inconsistent batting average and producing great games as opposed to good games. And then lastly on games that I did not back is Flourish. And this is another one that I was incredibly interested in. This is by the creators of Everdell, some of the same artists. This is drafting, one of my favorite mechanisms. And then the campaign landed and it looked so dry and uninteresting. I don't know how, my excitement level went from like all the way, here camera, all the way up here, down, straight down. It just went completely diving down in terms of, the gameplay did not look interesting to me in the slightest. It had drafting, but it looked like they focused more on producing quality bits than they did on producing a great game. Now, to be clear, I have not played this game. I am talking impressions only, but nothing about this. And the idea of fiddling with all these 3D bits and whatnot didn't seem like a pro to me. I sat there and I said, I just think I'd rather wait and get the cheaper version. I'd rather get the retail version when it's $23 at Miniature Market down the road. I don't need this signature edition with all these extra bits and pieces. I think bits and pieces and premium stuff in some games is excellent. And I think in other games, it's just clutter, and you're just paying for clutter. And in this case, I haven't played the game, but my impression was that I'm paying for clutter. And so despite being originally incredibly interested in Flourish, I ended up passing on Flourish at the end of the day. And from there, we go into what I did back in September, which is basically there's 4 games I backed in September. And to be clear, one of the things I will be including in this category are games that I didn't necessarily actually back, but rather either if I got a copy from the publisher that was good enough that I'm keeping that, or if I know I'm getting a review copy down the road. But the idea being games that I would have backed if I'm not already getting a game some way or another. And to start that off, we have Planet Unknown. That awkward moment when you realize that you apparently accidentally paused your video, finished the whole thing, and then realized you didn't really finish the whole thing. So that happened. So in any case, picking up from where I awkwardly paused my video, Planet Unknown is a game that it's not officially from September, but it's one that I late pledged in September because I put out a whole video of a late pledge video on Planet Unknown. This is one that I am incredibly excited about. Absolutely excited. Like if I took all my Kickstarters that are pending, the ones that are coming, and lined them up, Planet Unknown would have to be in the top 10. And the reason for that is because it's accessible. It's Massive Darkness 2 is incredible. It's amazing. It has tons of miniatures. I'm super excited about it. But Planet Unknown will hit the table far more than Massive Darkness ever has a chance of hitting the table. It's a polyomino game. It's light and accessible. This is a game that was everything that I wanted Isle of Cats to be. Isle of Cats, good game. I enjoyed it, but getting rid of it. And Planet Unknown it's everything I want it to be. It's light, it's polyomino, you're escalating tech trees. You each time you put down a tile, you're going to up different tech trees, which will give you different abilities. There are different boards, different corporations, different things. The modularity of this game, there's a ton going on here. This is one of the most excited one of the Kickstarters I'm most excited about backing, most excited or anticipating it showing up at my door. And I believe the late pledge is still open, by the way. I clicked through this. It seems like you can still late pledge, so give it a shot if you're still interested. But that is basically Planet Unknown. From there we go to Mercado de Lisboa. Mercado de Lisboa is a game that I sort of backed this one. I didn't actually back it, and I'm not backing it. But that's only because the review copy I got is production quality enough that I'm fine with that one. And this is still an interesting one. This is one that I said in my review. I did a should you back it, and I said in my review that I'm not certain about the longevity about this game, and I'm still not certain about it. Meaning, it's a game that I have played it multiple times since my review, and I've still continued to enjoy it. At the same time, it's dry enough. It is just so dry in what it's doing that it doesn't excite me. I enjoy it. I enjoy playing it, but it doesn't excite me. It feels very abstract, and to the point that I think the theme hurts me. I'd rather it be just a plain simple abstract where I don't have to think that the theme is dry, and I just think it's like, I mean, at the end of the day, TAC is a game that I love, and it's super dry, and it's an abstract. This should be no different, but either way, point is, Mercado de Lisboa is one that I still enjoy. I still have in my collection for now, and I'm still continuing to play it. I'll see how long that actually lasts. At the moment, every time I've pulled it out has been enjoyable, and so we'll see what happens over time. Which brings us to Rurik. Rurik is a game that is the exact opposite. In terms of mentioning how long I think Mercado de Lisboa is going to last, I think Rurik's going to last for a long time. Rurik is in my top 10 games. It was slowly drifting its way out before the expansion came along, Stone and Blade, and just bumped it straight back into the top 10, keeping it locked in there. And even if it drifts out of the top 10, that's, still top 20 is still a big deal for me. And so Rurik is a game that has this action programming mechanism that has been incredibly enjoyable and tight every single time I play this game. I cannot tell you how much I enjoy Rurik. Every time I play it, it is fun, it is tight, it is tense, and usually, not always, it comes in at 90 minutes to 2 hours, which is a pretty decent time. Once in a while, we've had games that last 3.5 hours, and that totally changes my 90 minutes to 2 hour thing, but overall, I really enjoy Rurik, and it's a lot of fun to play. The expansion just adds more to an already good game. It adds more basic buildings that I love, both of them, new actions, big fan of that. It adds it adds a whole module with these buildings that add a lot of variability to the game, and it adds modules around the rebellion, and as well as modules around combat and taking hostages, as well as leaders. Leaders are I'm a little less of a fan of the leaders. I want them to always be more powerful, more interesting, more engaging than they end up being in reality. But nonetheless, they're still fine. I'm still a fan of them. Overall, Rurik is one of my favorite games. Again, top 10 material, and the expansion I am super excited about. And then lastly, we have the Reckoners. So really not a lot of games. We have Planet Unknown, Mercado, Rurik, and the Reckoners. Those are all the things I backed in September. It's a fairly light month, all things considering. And the Reckoners, I think October is worse. We'll see how that plays out. But the Reckoners Steelslayer is a game that, this is one that, it adds more variability to the Reckoners, and that's enough for me, because my biggest complaint against the Reckoners, and I put out a should you back in and a review on this, but the Reckoners, while fully enjoyable, over multiple plays, it does get a bit samey. The action deck only keeps you interested so long. The different ways the game and the epics will play out only keep you interested for so long. And so, don't get me wrong, I still enjoy it every time I pull it out, but it is one that the more you play it, the more over time it will start to feel like, okay, it's the same game. Still a good game, but the same game. And this is one that I don't think I pull it out enough that it's a huge problem. So even if I didn't have Steelslayer coming, I would still enjoy the core game and the simplicity and elegance and dice rolling and fun, beat 'em up and all that. I'd still enjoy all that. But I am excited for the expansion. I'm excited to add more. Going back to the whole Rurik Mercado, where this lands, this is one that I believe will stay in my collection for a long time. I could be wrong. Sometimes I'm, wrong about these, and I play it enough times, and I'm like, you know what, it's kind of getting old for me. But that being said, even though I said it's samey, I enjoy this enough every single time I play it that I think it'll be around for quite a while. Plus, despite all the stuff on the table over here, it sets up and tears down in, 5 minutes basically. And so that is everything. That is everything that went on in September. That's what I backed, didn't back, a few updates at the beginning. And I plan on doing a video of these every single month for the prior month, covering all the stuff that I was interested in, what I did back, didn't back, why not, all that kind of stuff. As usual, if you enjoy this series, because this is going to be a new one, let me know in the comments down below. I think a monthly recap is a fun thing to do, but if you're completely bored because you're sick of seeing the same Kickstarter games again and again and again and again, well, then maybe I won't do the series. I don't know. Audience feedback is important to me. That's the BoardGameCo side of things, of where we sell games, so I say customer. But audience feedback is important to what I do here. I'm not interested in catering to every single person, because you just inherently can't. But in general, knowing what people like, what they don't like, what they watch, what they don't watch, all that stuff is important. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from BoardGameCo. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you with another one of these, I guess, in November for October. And until next time, have a good one.